So, hello and welcome to the New Gig podcast. I'm your host, Glen Hodgson, and today I'm delighted to be joined by the head of Adigital, Marta Becerra. How are you doing, Marta?
Hello, Glen. Thank you for having us. We're very good. Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here. Let's begin by just explaining a little bit about the work of Adigital, a few examples from Spain, but also your story, how you got into the platform economy.
All right. Well, let me start by Adigital. It is the Spanish Association for Digital Economy. It's a business organization based in Spain. We have around 500 members from all areas of digital activity from all over the globe. Amongst our membership, we can find, amongst others, those digital platforms that constitute the new business models that have been leading the ever-changing paradigm of work, what is known as the gig economy, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Also, as an association that has been particularly active during COVID lockdowns, we have been following very closely the increasing digitization of society during these strange times, to say the least. I'm speaking about telecommuting and things such as. And about myself, well, I come from the world of public affairs and regulatory affairs. I used to work at the Spanish Organization for Industries and Employers. This is the national business organization.
Yep.
I was based in Brussels for a while. I'm very keen on the European Union. And once I left Brussels, I came back to Spain. I had a very generic background for economy, for labor issues, for taxation issues, very general. And I wanted to approach something more specific, like sector economy. And then again, I guess I am a millennial or it's somewhere in the transition area to the millennial generation. So digital was just the hub I needed to go to, clearly.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. And, a little bit about the way things are going as well, because digitalization, as you mentioned there, digitalization is transforming the world of work. And it'll be great to give a few examples of things that we're seeing and trends that are happening at the moment.
Of course. Well, so there is no question on how society has been changing for the last 10 years. Thanks to digitization. However, COVID was clearly or has clearly been a further push on these changes and also on the perception on how digitalization can help us function in the world that we're living in right now. This is very clear to me, actually. But now on specific changes that seem to be transforming the world of work, there are three specific tendencies that we can touch upon. I'm talking about the gig economy that you already mentioned, the possibilities that lay in front of us, erasing physical frontiers or schedules. By this, I'm referring to telecommuting. And of course, just mentioning, we don't actually work on this issue, but the automatization of work.
Yeah.
Now, if you allow me, on the gig economy, as it's happened with other business models, digitization brought us a new way to approach an existing market. Specifically the labor market. We now have more flexibility for both workers and employers, which in the end benefits consumers. Let's not forget that. Now, when we speak about telecommuting, it has opened a new world of possibilities as well, not only for workers or work-life balance, but also for their beneficiaries. With this, I'm not only referring to your traditional office hours possibilities, but let's think for a moment of distance education or medical care. Now on this, we are seeing a world of possibilities in terms of access to places that before were quite unattended. This is clearly not just positive for the incumbents, also for other greater goods, such as connecting rural areas that were increasingly becoming depopulated. In Spain, we have an increasing problem around this, so it's quite important for us. And on the third issue, automatization. I'm sorry, that's hard to say in English.
For all of us,
Yeah, we're not active as an association. However, I think it's worth mentioning how automatization can provide for an alternative ways to execute those tasks that are most dangerous for us humans. Of course, we find here the important debate about job destruction and job creation, the education gap or skills mismatch, as it's usually called, as well as the need for further investment in education, upskilling or reskilling or continuous education. But still, let's keep into account that if we need to put something in danger, it's much better for it to be a machine rather than a person or human life.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that's dirty, dangerous, or boring, let's have machines doing that. And the reticence towards this, which is still being felt, is quite difficult to understand, I must admit. But you've touched on so many points there, Marta, in terms of the areas you're looking at, and all vital areas as well. It would be really interesting to get your perspective on the Spanish angle here. What are the kind of the barriers to the digital economy and digitalization that you're finding, if there are any at all?
Barriers. Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can go straight to the public authorities and regulations barriers here. Yeah. I mean the people, they're actually impulsing. These new models have been impulsed by demand, not so much by the businesses themselves. This is, I think, a change of how the economy has worked for the last 50 or 70 years.
Yeah.
But the regulatory bodies are clearly not keeping up to speed on this issue. And specifically, when we talk about gig economy, we find that at least in Spain, the regulators seem to keep trying to have the same regulations as we had last century, instead of trying to adapt to a 21st century new economy, to promote innovation through business, to favor the innovation that is actually benefiting the consumers. And of course, the goal of this regulatory bodies right now, when it comes to gig economy, is the protection of workers, and we agree on that. We definitely all want to have our workers well protected. But the truth is that by the regulation they're thinking about, they're not achieving this. They're just keeping the more barriers instead of allowing for the flexibility to come into place.
Right. Well, very similar things like we're seeing in the Nordics. Unfortunately, Martha, we're replicating some of those drawbacks. And what do you think the reason is for this? Is it a fear of the unknown? Is it a fear of losing control, or is it a lack of understanding about what's happening, would you say?
I think it's a little bit of all of them, all of the above. The changes that come with digitization come with great opportunities, but then again, they also come with great challenges.
Yes.
And specifically in the Spanish economy, we are not so much of a progressive country. We are quite reluctant to change.
Yeah.
And then again, the public authorities, they come with a vote. They come by general elections, and they try to provide solutions for those voters. And those voters are not so keen to that change that is coming. But the truth is that the change is coming anyway, and we need to adapt to a global economy and to the global needs. And we again need to stay a competitive economy. When it comes to Spain, I can talk to you about it later if you want. We are coming to a regulation that establishes an objective presumption of liberalization for a gig economy, not for the gig economy in general, but specifically for delivery platforms. And this is something that is in clear breach of the internal market at the European Union,
right,
which then, of course, makes us as Spain and our companies here in Spain to have less competitiveness against the rest of the European Union. It breaches the internal market. It also leaves us in a bad position against the rest of the world.
Yes. And I think this is an interesting point that you raised, that this is happening anyway. It's not slowing down. Quite the opposite. This is getting faster and faster in terms of the change that we're seeing. And trying to hold back the tide just means that more and more people will be drowned by it, as opposed to being adaptive, being able to get the skills and the knowledge necessary to be able to harness and profit from digitalization, the platform economy, and the gig economy, it seems.
Well, yeah, definitely. I think the public authorities and also the private sector have a greater responsibility here. When we talked about education and reskilling and upskilling, I think that should be the main goal It's not just about the job destruction or creation that's related to automatization, but it's also about providing education, not only to manage the digitization itself, but also even to manage the changes, the social changes that are coming up.
Yeah, yeah. And it's big changes and it's happening quickly. And the reality is being able to change and adapt to this. The fact that, we're seeing a different way in which the labor market's playing out. More flexibility, which is a good thing for employers and also for individuals. But of course, there is there's a downside of this as well. More flexibility means that there's potentially more precarious nature of the labor market, perhaps.
I don't think this is the right approach.
Okay.
I mean, there is a bunch of activities and tasks that are precarious just because they are. I mean, they were already precarious before the gig economy or before digitization. That's just the way they are. And it's not good to confuse digitization with precarious work. Yes. The thing is that, at least in Spain, what we were trying to do, although the regulator didn't find it very helpful, is to try to provide the protection of workers through keeping the flexibility, because flexibility is much needed in Spain. In particularly, unemployment has been one of our main concerns for the economy forever, because we have a very rigid labor market.
Yes.
Now the thing is that if there are ways to make this labor market more flexible through the gig economy or through digitization, we should be embracing those ways. And then again, the responsibility of the public authority should be to provide for the protection of workers, working closely with the private sector whilst they keep the market flexible. And it's not just the flexibility that needs to be in balance with the protection. The truth is that this flexibility might allow, or at least in the delivery sector, it did allow for higher income for the workers. Right. So it's not just the loss in terms of flexibility, but it's also the loss in terms of income.
And this is a great point, actually brings sort of more benefits and quite the opposite of what you maybe would read in the media or certain left-wing politicians who are trying to say this is terrible, slave labor, and it's actually sort of taking things in the wrong direction, which I think is a great point that you're underlining here, Marta. And to what extent is kind of the mindset something that needs to change, both in terms of the public authorities, as well as some companies and maybe some individuals as well?
Well, I think the social mindset has already been changed by the pandemic.
Yep.
We have already realized that digitization provides us with so many opportunities, and then again with so many challenges, that it needs to have some sort of it doesn't, I mean, the change is coming anyway. People just need to embrace it a little bit more. When it comes to public authorities and private sector, again, the way is to provide regulation that allows for legal certainty, allows for flexibility, and allows for social protection. Those three should be always the three goals. But together, we cannot sacrifice one for the other. Even worse when the other is not really protected as we think it should. I mean, we're trying to protect the workers, but we're sacrificing flexibility and innovation and regulation for a new future. I mean, for the future, not for the past. And I think this is a very high responsibility of the public authorities. I think the European Union is trying to approach it in a very general way. Sorry, that's not the word that I'm looking for. They're trying to approach it from a European perspective, which is good because we have an internal market and this is what we need to preserve.
Yes.
On the other side, the Spanish authorities, they have breached the internal market. They have tried to ring fence a very specific sector of the digital economy, not just platform or gig economy, but delivery itself. And this is the bad way to go. They need to work closer with the private sector, and they need to listen better. You know, as a side ideology or a side voters, you need to think about the future. In general.
I understand. So there could be the risk if the right actions are not taken of almost having like a split in society where you've got workers on these very unionized, very strict protected contracts, who are basically on the other side of the labor market, and at the same time you're not allowed the flexibility or allowing the sort of the digitalization and the benefits of the platform, the gig economy, and the project economy to really be able to flourish.
Definitely. And I think that you just somehow, what you were saying at the beginning, I think it goes straight to the fact that we have a very uncertain political arena right now.
Right.
I think in general in the world, and in particular in Spain,
Yeah.
we have a lot of populism that was flourishing in the 2016 or 2015, and they're just now providing more and more polarization of the society. And I mean, I don't think this is good. I think hopefully this is not never ending. There will be an end to this polarization and political confrontation. This is a permanent confrontation, and this is something that we need to approach from a common point of view, thinking about the future, not just thinking about our voters or our ideology or how to make coalition pacts in the government to make sure that we keep being the government in sight.
Yeah. Yeah. So we need to do something that's really going to help society, individuals, and the economy. And I think now more than ever before, given that hopefully we cross our fingers soon coming out of the pandemic. And of course, we can't put a date on that, Marta, but we hope that there's going to be a little bit more clarity coming out of that. But of course, as we do, there's the more than ever the importance to actually relaunch the European economy, the Spanish economy, to be able to get things going again. And we need some new ideas. And I think if we can say one of the benefits, and that's a very difficult and maybe a wrong word to use during such a pandemic and such a crisis, but as you were saying, the fact that people are more used to remote work, they're more used to using digital channels and digitalization to be able to get things done. So hopefully this can be people turning to the platform economy and the gig economy to actually relaunch the economy as we come out of this crisis.
Yes, absolutely. And we are actually now facing these next 3 years with the European, the mechanism for economic next generation EU. Sorry,
yes.
I don't know the real name in English apart from next generation EU. We have a bunch of money that is coming up to Spain, and we need to invest it in the real digitization. And this is education. This is digitization of processes or procedures. This is allowing or providing the means for the private sector to provide the means for the employer and for the workers to have or to realize the benefits of digitization. Maybe this means investing in computers, partly. I mean, I think the next generation EU needs to be invested in a lot more than just buying computer for our workers. But then again, there is an opportunity here that we need to take into account.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a wiser man than me once said, never waste a good crisis. And I think this is a great opportunity to be able to do that, to be able to take us forward and bring the positive out of the negative and to take us hopefully to the next level.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I'm sorry, you just said it so well. I cannot say it any other way.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that, Marta. That's a very good way of putting it. Then, well, I think that one of the great things as well we're interested in is also the regional differences, because you talked about sort of the fact that we have the big cities, we have more rural areas, but also this kind of democratizing effect of technology, digital channels, and the platform economy that brings people together, and it brings opportunity away from just the big cities to all areas of the country.
Yes, I mean, this most definitely, whatever we've been experiencing about telecommuting, I think it should be, or it looks like it's going to be just the beginning. I mean, it's the thing about location is that it's not just that you're saving yourself the commute that might be a 1 hour ride to your office. It's that you might be choosing where you can live. You can do that is called smart working, and just go to the pool with your computer and stay connected. You
Yes.
can maybe go live on the other side of the globe because you wanted to do some living in another country for a while,
Yeah.
or maybe you need to be to a closed one and you
Yeah.
need to take care of them, and you might need some other regime in your office. And then again, this is not just only because of that. Think about the cities that we can design if we can save ourselves from all those cars that are circulating.
Yeah.
We can save ourselves from all those gas emissions. We can
Yes.
maybe design cities for the future, designed for the person that walks, for the kid that plays, or for the elderly that is a little bit slower than
Yeah.
the rest of the people. That this is something that then of course there will be change in the around the businesses and around the business of offices, but I mean, there is change everywhere, and this is where the public authorities should come again and help the, I don't want to say the losers of digitalization, but
Right.
then again, it is true that when there's a crisis and there's a transformation, there are some people that are not going to adapt the same way, and the public authorities need to be there for them. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that you need to stop it altogether.
Absolutely. So benefits the economy, benefits the environment, and benefits increased efficiencies. What's not to like, Marta? It sounds like an ideal situation, something that everyone from politicians to companies and individuals should be getting behind. So thank you very much for these fantastic insights and sharing your views today.
Well, thank you, Glenn, for having me, sharing them with you and with your public, of course.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.